All right, so listen to this. You ready for a deep dive on like Elon Musk and government efficiency and oh yeah, a potential national security breach?
Sounds like a movie plot.
Right. It's a all this news and commentary about this Doge project is it's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so Doge, for those of y'all listening who maybe missed this, was President Trump's thing, and now it's Elon Musk running with it. And basically, it's about like finding and getting rid of waste in the federal government. They even like launched this Doge.gov website
Who?
that lets you like track your tax dollars and like look into agency budgets, headcounts. They even have the average age of employees. It's kind of wild. Are you
Oh.
with me so far?
It sounds pretty straightforward, but the funny thing is a lot of these programs that Doge is like looking at actually started during the Trump administration. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, some people think that's pretty funny.
That's hilarious. But here's where things get a little bit more complicated because, see, this Doge website apparently was like thrown together really fast, and now people are like worried about security issues.
Yeah.
And in fact, one source is even saying there was a hack like right after it launched.
Yeah, that's right. And two like web development experts, they were able to like show how easy it was to hack by adding their own like fake entries to the website.
What?
Because the database that Doge is using, you could like edit it if you wanted to.
Wait, so like anyone could have just like messed with the data on a government website about like how the government's spending money?
Yeah.
That doesn't exactly make me feel like they're serious about accountability.
It does seem like they weren't as careful as they could have been, especially when you think about the fact that people are saying Doge, like, put classified information online about the National Reconnaissance Office. We're talking like budgets, head counts, the kind of information that's classified as no foreign.
And no foreign. Like, what does that even mean for those of us who don't speak like intelligence jargon?
Basically, it means that sharing that information with people from other countries without, like, permission could be really bad for national security.
So this website run by Elon Musk might have just like spilled secrets that weren't supposed to leave like the US government?
That's what they're saying. And according to somebody in the Defense Intelligence Agency, they're worried that, like, Musk's team might have even gotten into, like, sensitive personnel data without permission.
Okay, now that's kind of scary. We're not just talking about like wasted tax dollars anymore. This could be giving like other countries a look into our intelligence capabilities, our vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And, Musk's company, SpaceX, has a $1.8 billion contract with the NRO to build spy satellites. So this is bringing up the question, should somebody who has, like, a ton of business with these agencies that he's, like, overseeing, should he be the one running something like Doge?
It's kind of blurring the line between private companies and like public service. And, with Musk like always criticizing people in the government, some are worried that he might use Doge like as a weapon, like to go after people or agencies he doesn't like.
That's a real concern. There's definitely a chance of that.
Right. This isn't just about like one data breach. It's making us think about bigger questions like data security, government transparency, and like the power dynamics of what happens when like private citizens get involved in sensitive government stuff.
And we haven't even talked about the people who are saying that the NRO information that was leaked was already public.
Yeah, right. Some people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. It was already out there. So help me understand this. How can something be like publicly available but still classified?
It's a misunderstanding that people have. They think just because you can find information somewhere, it means that it's okay to share it.
Okay, so like, give me an example. How could something be out there but still be a problem for Doge to like put all together?
Imagine a library with books on everything. Okay, so technically that information is public. Anyone can go in and read it. You could spend years reading those books and maybe figure out some, like, top secret stuff.
But that doesn't mean I can just walk in and like photocopy classified documents, right?
Exactly.
There are rules for a reason.
The library is like all the data that's out there, but there are rules for how you can use it and share it.
So Doge might be in trouble because they took all these pieces of information and just put them out there for anyone to see, including, people who might want to use it against us.
Right, they're not just like putting information together, they're putting it together in a way that could show our weaknesses, and that's a problem.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We're talking about like turning information into a weapon, even if it was technically public. But before we get too deep into that, let's like take a step back and think about.
Like the ethics of it all.
Right.
It's not just data points, it's people's lives, their careers. Even one of the articles mentions a person from the Defense Intelligence Agency who's saying people are like freaking out checking in their info was accessed.
Yeah, that really stuck out to me too in these articles. It's like this whole thing has like messed up how intelligence professionals do their jobs.
Yeah.
If they're like always looking over their shoulder, worried that their data is going to be like leaked, that's got to make them hesitant to, actually do their work.
Oh, absolutely. Intelligence sharing is all about trust. If that trust goes away, if people don't want to share information because they're worried it'll be misused or end up in the wrong hands, it could really mess up their ability to do their jobs, right?
So we're not talking about like some hypothetical risk here.
All
There
right.
are real people who could face real consequences because of this. And it all comes back to that question of, who do we trust with this kind of power?
Exactly. We talked about Musk and how he criticizes government people, and the worry is that he could use Doge to get back at people or, push his own agenda.
Right, and that's not even getting into whether his businesses, SpaceX and its contracts with the NRO create a conflict of interest.
It's tricky for sure because you could say that someone like Musk, with all his ideas and energy, could bring something new to the government and shake things up in a good way.
I get that, but then you got to think, does that possible disruption come at too high a cost?
Right. And that's what everyone's debating. Are we okay with risking security and ethics to try to be more efficient and innovative? It's a question that goes way beyond Doge and Elon Musk. It's about the whole idea of private companies getting involved in government stuff and how we balance different priorities in a world that's changing so fast.
One thing that I keep thinking about is like the slippery slope argument.
Yeah.
If we're okay with Doge exposing this much data, what's next? Where do we draw the line?
It's a good point, and it reminds us that we need to be careful about setting clear boundaries and holding people accountable, whether they're in the government or just private citizens with a lot of power.
It's like we're in this brand new territory, The lines between public and private transparency and security, they're all getting blurry. And it's not just about this one thing. It's about the example it sets for the future.
This Doge thing is making us face some tough questions about who we trust, how we protect our data, and what kind of future we're making. It's like a wake-up call. It reminds us that we can't just assume technology will fix everything we have to be involved in shaping the world we want to live in.
I like that a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the good thing that comes out of all this.
Maybe it is, because even though this is a complicated and messy situation, it's also a chance for us to learn, adapt, and come up with better ways to handle data, protect privacy, and make sure people are accountable.
So going back to Doge and this whole publicly available data argument, do you think that's a valid point?
Well, we have to recognize that the world of information is changing. More data is public than ever before, and that's both good and bad. The question is, how do we handle that responsibly?
And that's where the difference between like raw data and actionable intelligence becomes so important, right?
Yes,
Just because you can find bits and pieces of information all over the place doesn't mean you should be able to put it all together and present it in a way that could put security at risk.
exactly. It's like the difference between having a map of a city and having a blueprint of a bank vault. The map might be public, but the blueprint has secret information that could be used for bad things.
So Doge might be in trouble because they're basically handing out blueprints to anyone who wants one without thinking about what could happen.
Yeah, and it shows that we need to talk more about data ethics and the responsibility that comes with having access to sensitive information. It's not enough to just say, oh, it's already out there. We need to think about the context, the intention, and the potential harm that can come from putting information together in a certain way.
Like you said before, it's about more than just data points.
Right.
It's about people, their lives, and the trust that holds our institutions together.
And that's why this whole Doge thing is so interesting. It's not just a tech story or a political drama. It's a human story, and it's still going on.
Which brings us to a question that's been in my mind this whole time. If Doge was really meant to make things more transparent and efficient, did it go too far? Is there a point where being open crosses a line and puts security and privacy, even national security, at risk?
That's the big question, right? And there's no easy answer. It's like walking a tightrope, and the line can move depending on, the situation, what kind of information it is, and what could happen if it gets out.
So how do we even start to deal with this? It feels like we're in this gray area where the rules keep changing and technology is moving faster than we can keep up with.
Yeah, you're right. It's always changing. But I think the first thing is to realize there are no simple answers. We can't just go from total secrecy to telling everyone everything without thinking about what might happen.
So it's not about picking one or the other. It's about finding that middle ground where we can be as open as possible without putting people or, national security in danger.
Exactly. And that means having open and honest conversations about what we have to give up sometimes. We need to be willing to debate these things, question what we think is true, and weigh the good things against the bad.
It sounds like you're saying we need to be more careful and thoughtful and avoid easy answers.
Absolutely. And it's not just about these conversations happening with the people who make the rules. It's about giving everyone the tools to be smarter about the information they see.
What do you mean?
I mean, we all need to be more aware of what we're reading and watching online, where it's coming from, and who might be trying to push their own agenda. We can't just believe everything we see online. We need to ask questions, check our sources, and look at things from different angles.
So it's about being a little skeptical and being willing to challenge what we're told and dig a little deeper.
Right, and it's about knowing that being transparent, while it's a good goal, isn't always the best answer sometimes. Keeping things secret is necessary to protect national security or people's privacy or, to make sure investigations can happen properly.
It's like you said, it's all about balance, and it's a balance we're probably going to be figuring out for a long time as technology keeps changing and changing what's possible.
For sure. But I'm hopeful that we can figure out how to handle these challenges if we're open-minded, willing to learn, and committed to finding solutions that work for everyone.
Well, I really appreciate you talking about this. It's definitely given me a lot to think about, and hopefully our listeners too.
Of course. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. This is something we all need to keep talking about.
So, to wrap up this deep dive into Doge data and national security, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. This whole thing shows us how important it is to be informed and involved citizens. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, challenge what you hear, and demand that the people in charge are held accountable because, in the end, the future of our data, our privacy, and our democracy depends on it. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.